What's something people brag about that's actually kind of sad? Taking pride in not having any time off work. My coworkers boast about their unused hours of PTO as if it's some flex. 400 plus HRS. Meanwhile, they comment on my sub 100 hours of PTO that I consistently use to spend time with my kids plus wife, seeing family, or for personal days. I really don't understand it. Work-life balance that companies preach is bullshit. The most workaholic person who sacrifices everything else in their life for their job gets the promotion usually. You flex what management/ownership values, slavery. Not necessarily. In my experience. At least, it's always the brown-nosers that get the promotions and the hard workers get passed over. I've been promoted several times and I always take every single hour of my PTO. Some companies may be like that, but it's not like that everywhere. I always think how sad to this. Same when people brag they never take a sick day and just power through. Wow, show me all the medals you got for it. I used to have a coworker who said that the only time she's ever called out was the day her son was born. But she was at work the next day. I always felt so bad for her. This was Walmart and she literally couldn't afford to not work. That is sad. But she doesn't have a choice. It's a different kind of sad when people can but choose not to cause they think it's such a flex. The first situation is a result of the country she lives in not providing for its citizens' basic health needs, which many other countries consider a human right. Not giving someone even a minimal amount of paid leave after giving birth is simply immoral to me. Assuming your friend is in the USA, probably a safe assumption. That's a stain on us as a whole. The second group are people so convinced that this system is right, they volunteer to sacrifice their own basic health for it, even if they don't have to. Yeah. It should be criminal to force a woman back to work the next day, even the next week. As a Scottish mom with 2 kids, women's rights in America, or lack thereof, are insane to me. We can take a year, 9 months of which is government subsidized. I took 6 months off with my first baby and shared my mat leave with my husband and he took the last 3 paid months. But we still could have used another 3 months of unpaid leave. For my second I took the full 12 months. Our system is far from the best, but America is just so backwards in this respect. And it's only getting worse. TBH. Shit like this is why I get so frustrated with some of the frugal subs that push shopping at Walmart as the best choice to save money. Plenty of people have no choice, but those low prices come at way too high a cost. Thanks for coming in sick to share your germs with everyone else. And trust me, they will show you the door just like anybody else. I work around a bunch of e-company men like that. It is sad. Upper management loves these types of people. They reap the bonuses of your idiocy. I worked with a guy who had been an investment banker at one of the big I banks. He told me of flying home for Christmas, taking a helicopter to his home, spending 4 hours with his family before helicoptering/flying back. I work in transactions, not an iBanker. Dude, you didn't need to do that. Your client is not working. Your counterparty is not working. The other advisors are mostly not working, maybe a few hours in the corner with their laptops before going back to the celebration. You can take 2 to 3 days off over the holiday. This is just a way to try to communicate how important you are because you are so in demand. Sorry, but the really senior folks are getting their holiday off. Edit, to be clear, this was for counterparties in countries that observe Christmas. Substitute in other major holidays for countries with other major observances. This is something that I've never understood about the grinder mindset. You see it all the time over on r/LinkedIn lunatics, people bragging that they routinely get into the office before 6 a.m., or that they rarely see the sun, or whatever. Like, what the fuck are they doing that entire time? Writing the great American novel? If clients or other counterparts aren't working, then what is the point? They're planning meetings that could have been an email. I have a coworker like this, unfortunately. I never have any sick days. No, instead you come in obviously sick and cough on everyone, you disgusting cunt. An ex-coworker was like this too. So I wore a mask to protect myself and everyone else said I overreacted to it. Her dedication to work was celebrated upon. I left eventually. I had a coworker brag about always being accessible. Even on their vacations they are chronically checking Teams and Outlook. I'm salaried, but if I'm using PTO, I'm turning all notifications off. And if one of my coworkers is on PTO, I'll pitch in to try to cover for them. Being available 24/7 is not a flex. It's a mental health issue. Workaholics in general. Worst personality ever, these people are incredibly boring. Had a manager who said the same thing. When I and another teammate gave our resignation letters, they were like, you guys are so privileged to be able to quit and not have responsibilities. Maybe I know my limits and know that the job was triggering my own illness? This. A guy I work with always talks about having 15 weeks vacation banked. That's not a flex. That's 15 weeks of countries you could have visited, foods you could have eaten, oceans you could have swam in, stars you could have slept under. 15 weeks you could have spent with your kids. He thinks he's a hero. I think he's a sucker. That they haven't ever read a book. Edit, double negative corrected. Right? What always smacks my gob is when you see photos in publications like Better Homes and Gardens and there's not a single bookshelf in sight. How is this aspirational? Not having a bookshelf means someone doesn't read though. I love reading, but I only own a handful of books because I get them all from the library. And if they don't have a book I want to read, I buy it and then donate it. All the libraries in my council area are linked too, so you can go to your local and order a book from 120 miles away for free, and then hand it back in another town entirely. Anyway, support your local library. I think it's a bit silly to hoard books when you'll only read most of them once or twice, when you could have them still accessible to you 10 minutes down the road, with a 1-week wait worst case scenario, and also be accessible to other people so everyone can share. I live in a rural area and in a few villages around the locals have installed old telephone booths with bookshelves. The motto is a bring one, take 1 inch, and it is quite popular and in use. Our city has seriously embraced the little free library trend, weatherproof enclosures 2 or 3 shelves high, maybe 15 paperbacks wide, on a post with a glass/plexi door, and there are at least 3 on our dog walk alone, but no telephone booths, which sound fantastic. After those things weren't needed anymore, they stood around pointlessly. Now they have a new purpose, and it looks nice. People who badmouth their spouse to other people, or show other types of lack of respect. I once overheard a phone call, too loud to ignore, and was unable to leave, where a dude was absolutely fuming to his wife. The situation, she was at home, 8 months pregnant and tending to their first baby. During an electrical blackout, her husband was furious about her having to ask him where their camping stove was, in order to warm up some food. What a peak of empathy. Another guy told me that if he talked to his wife like that, he'd find the locks changed by the end of the day at the office. The last time I was deployed, there was a guy in my unit who would sit in public places and fight with his wife over Skype. Almost every day you'd get to work and see him shouting at her or their kids about something. It was so trashy and made me think significantly less of him, first that he was such a prick to his family, but also because he would do it around a lot of people who couldn't just leave the area. My boss does this. It actually makes me appreciate my relationship even more. I couldn't imagine being married to someone who talked poorly about me. This is very common in women-centric hobby groups and I absolutely don't get it. And I don't mean like little annoyance to laugh about together like, my husband locked himself out of the house recently. I mean big stuff like, my husband hasn't done laundry in 10 years. Girl, what? I got scoffed at recently because my husband and I take turns grocery shopping and they said they'd never trust their husband to buy for the household. I'm sorry, but weaponized incompetence does not fly in my house. Both ways, I've learned to change oil and fix a toilet so it doesn't always fall to him. We are a team. Us versus adulting. I have no filter. A nice way to say I'm just an asshole. Same with, I just tell it how it is. I'm usually brutally honest like that, except as low-key mean with it. People who claim to be brutally honest care more about being brutal than being honest. I come across this quote on Reddit sometimes, and it's spot on. People need to realize that freedom of speech / I have the right to my opinion, doesn't mean you have to state that opinion out loud. Especially when that opinion is just bullying. Seriously, this is like grade school level social skills. Basically tells me this person has no ability to read or adapt accordingly to social situations. Bragging about how little they sleep like it's a flex instead of just admitting they're burnout and miserable. That and overworking. I work 90 hours a week and I don't complain. Well, maybe you should. You don't see me taking my full lunch break, okay, but why the hell would you not? No, I don't, because I'm out of the office for mine. Yeah. I hate how everyone talks about experts sleep less, and next thing you know they are irritated easily. I hate how normalized this is in the medical field, most especially those creeps that chant about being alpha males. Like, bro, if you have to tell people that stuff, you clearly ain't shit. The whole concept of alpha males. Whether you have to tell people or not, why would you want to? And why would anyone else want you to? Exactly. If you are one, there's no need to tell anyone, we can figure it out. Then again, most alphas are just assholes. And the losers that spend $10,000 for a class in becoming an alpha, graduate first in your class, and you're still a loser. It's similar to guys having to remind everyone that they are straight by calling out anyone who is gay. If you have to keep telling someone you're straight, that means there's reason to question. If you're straight, your friend / family / spouse / partner knows. But if you have to keep telling them how straight you are, there's reason to question. how good they are at driving while drunk, how dangerous their hood is. You can honestly thank 90s rap for this. I say this as someone who listened to that shit growing up. Rap glamorized that hood upbringing and lifestyle. I've lived in some rather dangerous neighborhoods. No one brags about it, and if they do, chances are their neighborhood isn't that dangerous or they're insecure AF. Exactly. I teach at a lower income school. All the kids act like we live in a war zone and brag about it, flashing awkward gang signs and acting tough, name-dropping random gangs and cartel bosses. Yeah, there is some crime in the area, but it is all like general mischief and delinquency. I always tell them the real gangbangers and cartel don't talk about how tough they are. They just do what they do on the down low and without making a scene. When I taught at an inner-city low-income public high school for half a year, been 25 plus years ago, the kids had a mix of matter-of-factness, resignation, and shame about the bad shit that would happen in their neighborhoods. A whole lot of talking about how at least they didn't live around the 30th high school, where it was really bad. Asking me about how things were where I grew up, which wasn't in the city. Not a lot of bragging, not even from the kids with a hoodlum reputation. I was a 23-year-old, lower-middle-class white guy teaching in a school that was greater than 50% ESL. So all I wanted to do was to listen and try to relate to their lives. I remember one kid saying something about being afraid of kids from one of the more affluent white-majority high schools, at a football game, say, because those kids' parents can spend a lot of money to keep them out of jail, and ours can't. Very astute observation. Caesar. I've heard people brag about their criminal record, illiteracy, poor hygiene, debt, disloyalty, laziness, and wastefulness. Yep, some people think being referred to as a gangster is complimentary. You know, gangsters. Literal criminals. When companies brag about how someone's coworkers donated their unused PTO for a sick coworker, the amount of PTO someone gets is made up by the company. It's not a zero-sum commodity. Just give the person the time off they need and let your employees use their earned PTO. Yup, I was encouraged to donate PTO to a coworker with a sick child, and I did happily, but I also thought it was evil that they would ask the rest of us to do that. Why are the people with the dollar to do it asking the poor people to donate? We needed our PTO too. Just nope. In Britain the government pays for sick leave. Yes. And it's always presented as the company is so generous and understanding because we have generous and understanding employees who help each other out. Like, sir, that is not the role of the individual employee. This is you fucking up as an employer and making the worker bees bear the price of fixing it. Men who have never changed a diaper, or used a vacuum, or washed a dish. All that tells me is that you're a shitty husband and father and will likely be going through a divorce at some point in your future. I've heard the, I never cook. I can't even boil water, while the woman slaves in the kitchen. I'm always like, so, in your mind, you're more of a man because you're less capable? Make it make sense. Someone once said how she was at a dinner party when a man did this and asked him as if she was in genuine concern. Without a hint of irony or sarcasm, is it because of physical or mental limitation? He sheepishly stuttered and stopped. This is incredibly sad, but 10 times more sad for their kids. Some people seem to take pride in not having any empathy for certain people. Very strange behavior. Had a college roommate that bragged about never crying for anyone in their life. Breakups, deaths, turmoil, etc. I can't cry, it's just not who I am. OFC, she turned out to be the meanest, cruelest girl I've ever met in my life. Exactly. Being cold isn't the same as being wise. Not reading books. It's okay if books aren't really your thing, but to actually brag about not reading them? That just screams willful ignorance. I actually just encountered this for the first time with my sister-in-law. I'm currently reading The Haunting of Hill House, 'cause it's Halloween, why not? And she saw me reading it and said, "You just sit and read for fun?" Couldn't be me. I haven't read anything I wasn't forced to read since high school and have no intention to start. And I thought to myself, like, fine. If you don't want to like to read, there's no shame in that, but to be proud of the fact that you don't read is a weird flex. How much they can drink, like, bro, you're just an alcoholic. It's much more of a brag to say how little you need to drink to get drunk. Being a lightweight is cheaper. Leaving messes at grocery stores because it gives workers job security. No, it doesn't. We already have job security, but thanks to you our jobs are even more miserable. You're not helping. Just buy your crap and leave us in peace. Way too many fathers still brag about not changing diapers. My wife is so much better at. Sounds almost like a compliment until you realize she's one sleepless night away from a murder-suicide and he's laughing and drinking a beer. Plus, the reason why they're better at it is because they do it more often, not because they have some sort of instinct telling them how to do it. That instinct is a myth. They have to learn how to do it. Just like men. Terrible sleep schedule and luxury brands. People that brag about how much time they spend at the office, literally when they say, yeah, I live here. Like my man, go home to your family. Some of my coworkers worked half, joking the reason some people were so gleeful to go back to the office was to escape their miserable home lives. Heard this
So?
many times, and it was always disguised as, I'm more efficient at the office. I will never understand sacrificing oneself for a company that will replace you in less than 15 minutes. Material possessions. It's annoying enough when rich people do it, but even middle-class people do it. I don't care about your BMW or your iPhone, their high school years, that they've been in jail, being in fights, even if you win all of them, it's not something to be proud of in my book. Not taking holidays at work. Owning the libs. How quickly they cut people out of their life. Yes, things like having boundaries and not allowing other people to treat you poorly is important. But damn, it's like these people refuse to give anyone even an ounce of grace or understanding. Bad grades. Body count. A related one. Losing your virginity really early. Like my first reaction isn't to think you're cool, but to worry about you. A man on a reality show I watched said he lost his at 8. You were a victim of a crime. Exactly. If you have your first sexual intercourse at 8, then one of two things happened. An adult raped you. You had sex with another child. The former is a crime of abuse of power. A person who should be caring for and protecting you, instead violated you. The latter is a crime of moral failing. You were exposed to the concept of sex in a way that was not appropriate for your age, and were compelled to seek it out with a peer. Neither of you were old enough to understand the true depth of the action, and now both of you have done something that need not have happened. There is for all intents and purposes no reality where having your first time at 8 isn't a byproduct of some messed up adult interference. Girls who get married way too young and or have multiple kids before they even had a chance to navigate adulthood. Like no judgment on teenage pregnancies. But to those who had a choice, it's like, why? It feels very 1950s. Like the goal was to get hitched and have babies as quickly as possible. Girl in my school got knocked up at 14, gave birth at 15, became a grandmother at age 30, became a great-grandmother at age 45, had another daughter right after, so she has a daughter younger than her great-granddaughter. That'll confuse the census in 100 years. Al Michaels is rather proud of the fact that he doesn't eat vegetables. Chris, is it true that you have never knowingly eaten a vegetable in your life? Al, that is true. Chris, that is true. Al, I was born when my parents were 18 and my mother hadn't even read Dr. Spock at that point. So, she just let me have the run of the course and I always pushed the vegetables away. To this day, no. And I guess what I've proven, Chris, is that man does not need vegetables to survive. There's a lot of men who feel the same way or will say that they only eat potatoes and no other vegetables. Never being wrong. Then you scrape the paint and it's either unable to take corrections or criticism. It's always someone else's / the context's fault. They ignore corrections and remain in a world where they're correct. Nobody is never wrong. Being wrong is an opportunity to become better / closer to truth when corrected. Some people are unable or outright refuse to stand corrected. It's either their narratives, or literally everything else goes down the drain. My brother-in-law always has a story about how he got back at someone that wronged him. There's a new one every time I visit. The problem is he is always the villain in his own stories. He sees himself as defending himself against tyranny, but the tyranny in question is some innocent person going about their lives that has inconvenienced him in some small way and he retaliates with some insane behavior. He always tells these stories like he's done the good and just thing to an evil person. Things like, this lady Linda at my work is always whistling when she walks by my office, and I know she's doing it to piss me off. So I told her boss she's been stealing equipment, that'll teach her. I say this is actually kind of sad, and not just evil, because I know he was bullied as a kid and his dad was abusive, so this is all coming from deep childhood trauma. He genuinely thinks he needs to defend himself against everybody in order to survive in the world. Don't get me wrong. I hate the guy and limit my exposure to him as much as possible, but I am sad for him because he didn't ask to be this way, and if you point any of this out he just slash your tires or something. Bragging about romantic partners doing the most basic relationship things, he cooks when I'm sick and listens to me when I'm sad, like okay, cool he should be. Bragging about not voting. Bragging about how many fights they get into / how many haters they have. Bragging about how many more medical conditions they have over you. Bragging about how much they can drink / how high they can get. How they don't get enough sleep every night. People who brag about never needing sleep or rest. Like girl, that's not a flex, that's burnout. College professors bragging about how nobody passes their classes. People who brag about their faith or a loyalty of being completely unshakable. Comrade. That just means you have refused to analyze your thoughts on the subject. You should always be willing to change your mind based on new evidence. How their family member is/have been criminal. Bragging about being beat as a child. Like, it's a problem that kids these days aren't hit with a belt. No sir, it's a problem that you think beating children is a solution for anything at all. And what kind of weak motherfucker needs a weapon to beat up a kid? Kids are easy to kick the shit out of. What are you bragging for? Generational trauma isn't a virtue. Got another one, how much money you spend on your wedding. The cost of marriage in the US is whatever you pay for the marriage license. The rest is pure theater, and leaving it out doesn't make a couple any less married. People who spend tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of thousands on a wedding, and brides, paying thousands of dollars for a dress you will wear exactly once, wouldn't that money be better spent on a down payment on a house? Of course, if you have enough money to do both, more power to you. Bragging about it is what's sad. If it's just me, but when single dudes brag about how much girls they've been with or how many exes they've had, like it makes them some rock star or something, it just makes me think about a lot of failed relationships or shallow sex. It always makes me think that none of those women were inclined to come back for seconds. Oof. The amount of Labubus/Stanley Cups/etc. they own. Second this. I haven't heard of Stanley Cups for months and I feel like the Labubu trend is already pretty much on its way out. Agreed. No one cares. Women who are anti-feminist and then birth 5 daughters. Men who are misogynists and then have only daughters. People who brag that they never drink water or don't eat vegetables. Your organs are trash. How could that possibly make you proud? How religious they are. Scammers stealing from the elderly. Having not read a book since high school. Herein lies the problem with America today. That being married with children, especially a lot of children, makes you a better person than a single person. No, it doesn't. Oddly enough, I've had more people tell me that I'm selfish for not wanting children than anything else. It's just such a bizarre sentiment. That's the married parents' jealousy talking. They remember what it's like to get a full night's sleep, having lots of free time available, going out/traveling, not having so many responsibilities, and resent the childless person for still having that. Either that, or they're super religious/conservative and cannot conceive of someone choosing not to be fruitful and multiply. How much spicy food they can eat like it's a badge of honor. Like, okay, we get it. Grinding, working over 40 hours a week. You're a victim. Point the finger at me. I am 5 years past my cancer expiration date. Now that is a flex. Congratulations. I worked hard for this. Coming from someone from a super privileged background who didn't work all that hard, just wants to deflect possible jealousy or feeling that they didn't deserve it. I think there's perhaps a little nuance to how super privileged background and didn't work all that hard comes into play here. Or maybe I'm just anxious. If we're talking somebody who is currently and obviously taken care of by family money and family authority, and is very obviously coasting through life, then I absolutely agree. But it's not impossible to be biased by preconceptions in a way that doesn't accurately reflect reality, because I say this from a position of experience. I do come from a super privileged background. My father was significantly wealthy, well-liked among his peers, and probably could move some smaller mountains with words alone. Unfortunately, that didn't translate to me being daddy's spoiled princess. He was emotionally and physically abusive, medically abusive, and fully controlling, and when I wasn't the doll he intended me to be, he settled for trying to imprison me as a caretaker. I got away from that. I don't talk to him. I get nothing from him. I am a fully independent adult approaching 40, and I do work hard to make a life for myself as that asshole revels in his riches and whatever other debauchery tickles his fancy. I would be pretty pissed off if people just looked at who my father was and assumed I'm eating off a silver platter, when I did and do work hard to have my job, own my own home, live my own life, and support my significant other. Bragging about your sex life. After 30, I have no respect for men that brag about cheating on their wives, at any age. If it's necessarily bragging. But women who make posts online about how useless their husbands are and how they don't know their kids' birthdays or what they are allergic to, how little sleep they get. Like, we get it. You're powered by anxiety and 3-day-old coffee. You're not the Wolf of Wall Street. You're a tired little possum hissing at the sun. They're overworked. My boyfriend had a manager at a restaurant he worked at that missed his twin boys' graduation to stay at the restaurant. My BF used that to say how hardworking this manager was. Missing your child's graduation because you're so hardworking is not the flex you think it is. Especially after he also told me how maladjusted these kids were socially. Yeah, 'cause their father chose work over kids. Staying in relationships through everything. You know that he cheated on me 3 times, stole my car, won't let me have social media, threw away my phone and tried to fight my brother, but we can get through anything. I've heard a number of parents brag about how harshly they've disciplined their kids, some to the point of actual abuse. It's so weird hearing how proud they were to lose control, or how smart and right they think they are, or how tough they think they look for dominating literal children. Anything. If you're bragging, it's to compensate for low self-esteem of some kind. How drunk they got last night might be mildly cool at 18 but is seriously sad at 45. I've seen people brag and be proud about spending time in prison or being a criminal. It's embarrassing. Being hit by their parents and hitting their own children. Living at home with your parents. It's not sad that you're still with your parents, it's sad that our economy has become too expensive that 30-year-olds brag about not paying rent by living with their parents. Australia. Buying a house with money from mom and dad. NGL, if I had this option I'd take it. But I would definitely not brag. Or tell anyone actually. How many hours they work and money. Brutal honesty when they really mean they just say offensive and cruel things with no regard for anyone else. Having kids when they can barely provide their children's needs. Never change their child's diaper. As someone who still doesn't have a license due to driving anxiety, whenever someone finds out, they like to feel superior to me and make me feel less than for being scared of driving. It's hard for sure not having a car, but I make it work. I ride my bike to work and always get there first while they are stuck in traffic. Paying off their car, dealing with bad drivers, and parking fiascos. I also take the train/subway every moment I can and still get passive-aggressive comments from people trying to make me feel ashamed for not driving at my big age. I get to look out the train window and see things most people don't get to see, then open up my laptop and relax while they are gridlocked. Love trains, and it feels like people are finally seeing the beauty of them. Of course it's difficult sometimes and wish I had gotten my license, but I've always figured it out. And it seems to infuriate people that I don't carry the same burden as them, even though I have my own to worry about. Having hoes. It's dope, but you hold no actual connections with anybody. You just have hollow-ass encounters. It's fun and it goes, but once you start getting old it doesn't mean anything like it used to. I read this as hopes. I like my version better. Wearing/owning luxury brands. It will never cease to make me sad. There's nothing wrong with having nice things, but when you make it your whole personality, it's just so incredibly sad to me. The amount of drugs/substances they've tried. Their obsession with the gym. Yes, exercise is great, but if you make it your entire life it's just a bit sad. I don't need anyone. Usually said by someone who really does. I be waking up early to hate. Working 80 hours a week. I don't depend on anyone. When an arrogant jerk says they ought tell it like it is. When people brag about being glad that they were beaten by their parents/teachers growing up. It is next to impossible to get them to understand that they weren't being disciplined if they were being yelled at/hit for eating more than usual or for scoring less. How bad their childhood was. So many posts on Reddit are venting about genuine heartbreak. And the comments will be a cesspool of, when I was a kid. You should just be grateful. Be grateful you got yelled at. I would have been beaten. Yeah. Well, I was abused and poor. You think that's bad? When I was little, it reeks of jealousy and it's such a self-poisoning mindset. I always feel sad for people who brag about how early they got into work or how late they stayed working. I just heard someone do it last week that, oh, I got here at 6:15 this morning, like it's not a flex. It's sad. How many people they've slept with, and yes, it's equally sad/annoying for both sexes. How little sleep they get and they're still able to function. Like it's some sort of masculinity dampener to care about your health and well-being. Good for you, Darren. You slept 2 hours last night. Sink a 6-pack every night and see your family 2h a week. You're probably gonna die at 62, my guy. Saying, I don't need anyone, it sounds strong, but it's really just sad. Being busy. It's not good to spend your life rushing around and not relaxing. When their partner babysits his or her own child. If your husband or wife is so detached from his or her own child that you feel the need to brag about less than the bare minimum, that's sad. In their 40s. Still wearing their high school leather jacket and talking about that big game. Running on 3 hours of sleep and 4 cups of coffee. You're not a productivity god, you're just tired and dehydrated. People bragging about how little sleep they get for work or school. It's sad because it shows burnout is worn like a badge of honor. How many hours they work. How much their debt service costs. How much they cost gambling. How much alcohol they consume. The type of trauma they've endured. I voted for this. How many DUIs you've had. How many jobs you've been fired from because you can't stop running your mouth. How little you pay in child support. How many of your coworkers you've fucked, etc., etc., etc. No education. Working retail and service jobs in college, I had so many managers who bragged about how much they make and their position, and including the fact that they only finished high school. What made it worse was the many employees who were in school not college age and older and bragging to the point that they basically talked down to those employees as if they are idiots for pursuing an education or trying to improve themselves. Maybe I'm biased or misinformed, but I do have an admiration for someone who worked their way up with no serious higher education and made something of themselves without it. So many people in society are pushed to get a higher education, but the fact of the matter is, that isn't the path for everyone to take to reach their goals or their version of success. I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment that college/higher education is a scam, but I also completely understand why someone would think that. Using drugs or alcohol, like they have this super power. I lose respect of them when someone tells me I drank 10 beers other night. I cringe at how I acted in my 20s and even my 30s. My life revolved around going out to the bars and hitting up whichever bar had a specific beer special that night. I don't lose respect him, just like don't fucking be drunk around me or in public. Didn't see it mentioned yet, bragging about not knowing something popular. Like on posts about currently popular celebrity, I don't know who this is and I don't care. I often don't know them, but I'll probably just make a note of them in case they get more popular and I'm expected to know them for joke punchlines or memes, or maybe even check them out to see if I like their work. How little they sleep and how much they work. Amount of social media followers. Buying a designer bag. Spending thousands on something made for a tenth of the price, just because it has a certain name or logo on it, is quite sad. How little sleep they got or how many hours they worked. How few vacation days they took. How much they sleep around because they can't be bothered in putting in the hard yards to hold an actual relationship. How many hours a week they work because the grind never stops. The world sucks right now and most of us are struggling. This isn't the flex you think it is. How hyper-independent they are. I feel so sorry for the trauma they went through resulting in this coping mechanism.